Hi, it's just a short video to share my concerns and disgust really about Chomsky, and apparently he dispels 9/11 conspiracies with his sheer logic. Well, it's a pity you couldn't use your sheer logic, isn't it, Noam Chomsky, to dispel the official conspiracy theories of 9/11 as and when it happened, along with the families and friends of the victims, along with the firefighters, along with the first responders, along with the pilots and architects and engineers, along with the demolition experts. Oh, but apparently, according to David Pakman, you can't believe anybody's credentials just because you've seen them speaking on the internet or because you've read something they've written on the internet. You can't believe in their credentials. Really? So why should we believe in your credentials then, David Pakman, and why should we believe in his? Are you telling me that Dr. Judy Wood is a liar? That she's not an expert in physics and engineering? And this is Noam Chomsky, you know, apparently associated with the New Left. He was arrested multiple times for his activism and placed on President Nixon's enemy list. Oh wow, what a feather in the cap for you, eh, Noam Chomsky? You know, go and get yourself some credibility. Well, I've got news for you. The left is right and the right is wrong. Okay? Why could you never explain that to the people? Being so you're so intellectual and intelligent. Why could you never work out that the left was right and the right was wrong? Because the so-called left, standing up for human rights, truth and justice, were right. And those against us are wrong. Okay? And all his bloody anarcho-syndicalism and libertarian socialism. You know, apparently he is a professor of linguistics. I wrote to him asking him to challenge, you know, to challenge the establishment's interpretation of the words ignorance and ignorance. Ignorance and ignorance. Okay? As including not knowing, when that's a fundamental corruption of the words, because the root word of both of them is ignore, which means to know and take no notice of. So in order to ignore something, you must know. So how can not knowing be part of ignorance and ignorance? How can it? But oh no, you've never challenged that, have you? The one word that the whole establishment used as a weapon, a judgment against all the native peoples, judging them all ignorant, heathen, no rights to God's law. No, you weren't prepared to question that, were you? Call yourself a professor of linguistics. And it really annoys me to witness people like Chris Hedges and Abby Martin fawning at his feet. You know, oh, such reverence for the great Chomsky. Oh, what does he have to say? The very fact that he kept his mouth shut about the glaring discrepancies in the official conspiracy theory, the very fact that he could not use his sheer logic to dispel the bleeding obvious, makes him complicit. And what was his reasoning? Was it because, if you start telling the truth about that, if you start asking questions about there could be civil war in America, good, let there be civil war in America then. There needs to be civil war in a country where the government has conspired and plotted against its own people in order to give themselves justification for killing millions of innocent, for killing and maiming millions of innocent people and totally demolishing their country and installing a set of terrorists in Iraq. So Iraqi people, instead of Saddam Hussein, they've got ISIS there chopping their teenagers' heads off for watching football or listening to rock music. You are responsible, Noam Chomsky. You are responsible because you kept your mouth shut. The problem was with America. 9/11 was an American problem with American politics and American powers, and the war, if there was going to be a war, then let it be one with the people standing up for their constitution and removing a force of tyranny from power. But no, instead it's all gone to the Middle East, hasn't it? And look at the horror that's been unleashed there, and you still have the audacity to pontificate about it all. Going on, giving you lectures on Al-Qaeda and what the fuck else. How dare you, how dare you, how dare you. And I know a lot of people are really upset with me for having a go at knowing, oh, he's an old man. Well, he was a lot younger 16 years ago, wasn't he? And he could have spoken out. And he could have stood by the families and victims of 9/11. He could have stood by the first responders. He could have stood by the firefighters and all the witnesses and the architects and engineers and the pilots and the demolition experts. He could have stood with them, and he has not. And it's precisely because people like him have stayed silent that then people like David Pacman will stay silent as well, you know, have the audacity to sit there telling us, oh, you can't believe people's credentials just because of what they've said on a YouTube video or on something that you've read on the internet. Well, how can we believe what we've read in a book? What's he read? Oh, he's been to Harvard. Oh, well, obviously, we've got to have full faith and trust in him. He's been to Harvard. It is disgusting beyond belief, you know. And this guy, hats off to him, top respect to him. Why isn't he being on Democracy Now? Why is nobody? Oh no, he's just the idiot who got up and challenged the great guru, the great intellectual guru of America. Well, it's no wonder Trump's in power, isn't it? With his ghastly entourage. It's no wonder we're just witnessing Charlottesville. Well, that's where your silence of the establishment and all you people who claim to be on the side of truth and justice, that's where your silence and gatekeeping have got us, okay? And it is because of you lot that Iraq happened, that what's happened, and it's continuing to happen. It's because of your silence. Because you don't want any trouble at home, do you? Oh no, we don't want any trouble, so we'll just keep quiet about that, because otherwise there's going to be too much trouble. Really, well, there's been a lot of trouble for the people of Iraq. There's been a lot of trouble for the people of Afghanistan and Libya and Syria. And now there's mass immigration. People are fleeing in their millions from the Middle East. And where can they go except to Europe or to America? And now what's happening? Oh, the Muslim invasion. You know, they're even feeding on that. And all this Islamophobia. Where's it come from? 9/11. That's where it started. And I don't care what anybody says. You don't need to have a degree in physics to understand that a plane hitting a building, a steel and concrete glass building, does not turn that building, the steel and the concrete and the glass and everything and everyone in the building, into dust. That does not happen. Not anywhere on this earth can that happen. But it did. It happened twice. And even Building 7, office fires turned it to dust and made it collapse in its own footprint. Go away. Don't talk to me about, oh, well, if a scientist writes a science paper, you know, then maybe they can explain and tell the truth. Wait for that to happen. Wait for that to happen. Well, it's happened. The scientists have spoken out. The experts, they've written their papers. How dare you? How dare you? And Chris Hedges and Abby Martin, you are both my heroes. But I tell you now, I am disgusted to witness that you stand by this creep, is what I call him, a creep. Because I did used to look up to people like him and think, yeah, you know, he's an intelligent person. He will say something, and he said nothing except spit out the same crap, more or less, that the establishment was spitting out, except, you know, with his slightly so-called leftist viewpoint. But as I say, anybody with any real intelligence will lose these labels of right and left politics, because it's time to throw them in the fucking bin where they belong, because the left is right and the right is wrong. You're wrong, rights, okay? Because you want to deny people's human rights on grounds of their wealth, class, race, gender, age, and it's all disgusting. And what I want to know is, why isn't this guy, why isn't he on Democracy Now? Why not? Top respect.